Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be creating this inventory dashboard. This is part of my dashboard series. So if you haven't seen any of the videos in that series, I'll leave a link to the playlist so you can go ahead and check it out. In today's video, we're doing an inventory dashboard. I have it titled Bakery or Cafe Food Inventory, but it applies to anyone or any business that wants to keep track of their food items. If you're tracking inventory of items that have an expiration date, this would work too. It's a simple inventory tracker. Obviously, there are more comprehensive ways to keep track of inventory. This is a simple one that we're going to be creating today. All right, so let's go over to the tutorial checklist. We'll start with the template overview, starting with the setup tab. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll go back and build it from scratch. The setup tab has all of the drop downs that's going to be going into the database. Now, even if you are preparing your template for personal use, I recommend using a setup tab. It just makes it easier when you need to change things later on. The next is the database tab. This is what's feeding the dashboard. It's a very simple table. Of course, you can include summary graphs and charts, but I find that unnecessary because we have a tab that's dedicated for that. And then we have our dashboard, which is where we started. This dashboard has different sections, and this is a quick overview of it, but we're going to create everything from scratch. While we're doing that, I'll go through each section in detail. So let's get back here, cross this off, and get started with creating the setup tab. Starting with a blank sheet. And what I normally do with all my sheets is I clean it up. And what that means is I select the entire page. I change the font to the one I like to use. I'll move everything after column O. So just highlight P all the way to Z, delete them, and remove everything after 35. If you need a longer list, add additional rows to your setup tab. Then what I like to do next is highlight the entire space and resize it to 30, the rows that is, and highlight the first one and the last one and make those 30 as well. So it creates a border around this setup tab area. And I'm going to rename this setup tab 2 just to distinguish it from the example, which is just called setup. And I will refer to setup 2 as a template and setup as the example. Next, we're going to create these tables here. Let's go back here, highlight every other cell, because that will be the space between the tables. Resize them to 30 as well. Highlight the actual table columns, make those 200. You can make it wider depending on what you need to fit in them. So here is the first table. I just put a border around it using this gray color. One more around the title or label area. This is where the header is going to go. And here's where the rest of the information is going to go. I'm going to highlight this and add internal borders using this light gray color. Change it to this dotted line, horizontal borders. You can't quite see it clearly because I have the grid line. When I take it off, you should be able to see it. And next I'm going to apply colors. And here is where, of course, everyone's taste is going to be different, right? So go ahead and use whatever colors you want. But what I would recommend is when you're applying colors in Google Sheets, use these custom colors here. When you open your sheet, it's going to have a generic color that you can change. Click here and you can select any of these theme colors, which is what I'm using right now. I selected this vintage color and I click customize and I made change to the fonts, and that's how I got to what I have right here. You don't have to specifically use the colors that come with the theme colors, although I do think that there are many great options that already work well together. But the point of using these colors is that it makes it easier for you to change things around in the future. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say right here, this is the setup tab. Here's the color that I'm using for the header. So let's go back here. I'm going to add this color, the same one here, right? All right, so those are the same. And now I've made my template and I changed my mind. So I could easily go here and select another color. But if I change the color right here, so I go here to edit, and here's the color I want to change. Let's say I change it to this orange color. You see how it changes here? Look what happens when I go here. It changes it across the entire template. It makes it so much easier to make global changes within the template. I'm going to undo these and select a color from the palette using this one here. Go ahead and select whatever color works for you. I'll add a background color in this area. You can use whatever colors and design style that you like. So now that I have completed this, what I'm going to do now is just select the entire thing, use the paint format, copy it to the next one. And now that I have two, I can select both of them, dump it here and do it one more time. And then for the last one, apply it across the board. And then now that we've done this outline and the structure, I will remove the grid line. The next step would be to add the values here. And I'll show you what I have so you can use the same headers I'm using, change the brands and the categories based on what your needs are. I'm going to copy these because I'm essentially reusing the values here and then paste it here. So I have brand, category, subcategory, packaging information. So like a bag of coffee, a carton of milk, things like that. Units of measure have 50 grams, 100 grams, and 500, 1 kilo. So several options for grams, several options for volume. You can certainly add more if you need to. When you get a new item and the unit of measure doesn't exist, so maybe you buy a bottle of sauce and it's 25 ml. We don't have 25 ml here. Just add 25 ml and it will be available to be used in the database tab. And then storage location is self-explanatory, and supplier would be the companies that you get your supplies from. So the setup tab is done. Let's go back to our checklist and we can check this off. Next, we're going to create our database table, this one right here. We're going to start by doing the same thing, which is start with a blank sheet and clean it up like I normally do. All right, so here's what we have. What I've done is to remove the excess columns, and I've removed rows from 253 and beyond. Obviously, if you have a long list of ingredients, go ahead and add more rows. I resize the rows to 30 like I always do. Then we'll resize the border columns next. Select both of them, 30. Here's where our header is going to go. So we'll add a border around that. Select the rest of the table. I'm going to add another border around them, and I'm going to do internal borders as well. I'm selecting horizontal borders. Go to border color, change it to the gray color and this dotted line. Now we can apply some color. So go ahead and apply whatever color you want. I'm keeping it consistent with what I already used before. Just apply this color and change the font color to white. I'm going to rename this ingredient database 2. All right. And remember, this is going to be called ingredient database 2 or the template. And this is going to be called ingredient database, or I'll refer to it as the example. All right, so we're done with the structure, and I am going to copy the headers here because we're using the exact same ones. Back to our template, paste them here. Next, we're going to adjust the table so the width of each column works, and then add specific formatting to certain columns. All right, so the first is the food item, so we're just going to make this bigger. And you can right click and do 200. And then we have brand, category, subcategory. These are going to be around the same width, so we can make this 200 as well. And then I'm going to change the food item to 250. And it really depends on your needs. If you don't need it to be this wide, you can make it narrow, make it specific to what you need to use it for. So these are going to be drop downs. We'll come back to them in a second. This is expiration date, quantity, unit of measure, packaging. We can probably make these 150. And location, supplier. So these also can be right around 200, and then I'll make this 250. So now you can read the headers easily without a problem. So next I will add the drop down to make the column specific formatting. We'll start with this one, add a drop down for the brand. To do this, we're going to use data validation. Now you can easily insert a drop down by clicking on insert and drop down, but we're going to use data validation because it's the same thing. You can add drop downs here, but I also want this right panel open because we're going to use it for other formatting rules as well. Select just a few cells right here like I've done and click on add rule. It's going to automatically add a rule to these cells, and remove 14 because we want it to go all the way down to the end of the table. And we're going to change it from drop down to drop down from range. Click this icon that says select data range. Go back to our setup 2 tab. Look for brand, select that entire table, click OK. Click on advanced and you have chip, arrow, plain text. I'll leave it as chip for now. And then just repeat the same steps for category and subcategory. So add row and remove the row number so it selects everything automatically. Drop down from range, back to our setup tab to select our category options. Click OK. So now we can test it out just to make sure. So here you see our brands showing up here, categories showing up here, and subcategories showing up here. Next is going to be expiration date. We want to make sure that when we double click, the date picker option shows up. So we're doing the same thing, selecting a few cells, click on add rule, remove F10 just to make sure it selects the entire range. Change this from drop down to is valid date. And then I like to reject the input just to make sure that it forces the user to select a date. You can check this box if you're sharing this template and you want the end user to know that they need to add a date here, just in case they're wondering why there's an error message showing up. And then click done. So now when I double click, you can see the calendar shows up and I can select a date. This is a default date style showing up. I usually change that by going to format, number, and I change it to this one. This is showing up because I already used it, but if yours is not showing up automatically, go to custom date and time, and then you have these options that you can select from. I'm going to select this one, which is the abbreviated month, 2-digit dates, and 4-digit year. Select that, click apply, and here's what we have. All right, so we don't have to do anything for quantity. Units of measure is another option that we have created in the setup tab. So we're going to add that. Select a few cells, add rule, drop down from range, back to our setup tab, units of measure, and done. We're going to do the same thing for packaging, location, and supplier. Select a few of them, add rule, drop down from range, set up to packaging. The next is minimum stock quantity. I added this because people might want to use this template, not just track the inventory, but to know how much they have on hand and if they're running out and how much they need to reorder. So that's what this is for. The minimum stock quantity is a number. When I add in the placeholder data, you see what that looks like. So we'll leave that blank for now. The stock status is going to be created using a formula, and I'll do that next when I add in the placeholders. Last updated is the dates that the line item was last updated. So we're going to add a date format like we did before. So select, add rule, check what we need to check off, click done. Go back here, change the format to the one we used earlier. All right. And then double check to make sure it works. And then for notes, we don't need to do anything. So here's what we have so far. Let's go back to our example. We're going to copy the information from here. But before I do that, I want to show you a few things. So the food item or your item name is pretty straightforward, right? The brand is the brand name. The category and subcategory might be helpful if you want it even more organized. So in this case, for flour, it's baking and subcategory is dry goods. And for coffee beans, it's a beverage and the subcategory is coffee. Expiration date is pretty self-explanatory. Quantity is the quantity on hand. Just to clarify, because we do have another quantity. This is quantity on hand and this is the minimum stock quantity. The unit of measure I already talked about. We have one 1 kilo bag. All right. Or for the coffee beans, we have 10 500 gram bags. So that's how this would work. And then the location is where you have it stored. Supplier information, pretty straightforward. Now the minimum stock quantity, this is where it's really going to be very specific to what you're using this template for. If you're not going to be using these templates to guide reordering, then you probably don't need this, but this is going to help you figure out when things are out of stock or low stock. And this is what's going to help create this column right here. So you see how this column says stock status? We have in stock, low stock, out of stock, right? This column is generated using formulas and is generated by comparing the minimum stock quantity to the quantity on hand. I should really name this quantity on hand. It just makes it make more sense. I'll do quantity on hand here. Okay, so that's much better. So quantity on hand and the minimum stock quantity. This formula is going to look at the quantity on hand compared to the minimum stock quantity. It's going to say, all right, you want minimum of 1, you have 1. That means it's in stock. So what happens if we want a minimum stock quantity of 1, but we have 0? So let's change this quantity to 0. This automatically changes to out of stock. The low stock is not 0. You have 1 on hand, but you really want the minimum to be 3. It's going to flag it as low stock. That's the difference between the low stock and the in stock. So here's a formula. It is comparing the amounts, right? In G3, comparing it to this, and it's going to assign out of stock, low stock, or in stock. If you want to use different wording instead of out of stock, low stock, or in stock, you can change them because that's where it is in the formula. See, out of stock, low stock, in stock, you can add the word you want. As long as you're within these quotes, you should be fine. We're going to copy this formula and paste it in our sheet. So back to our templates, select this column all the way down and add this gray color here and left and right border right here. And then I paste the formula here. The formula should work without an issue because I'm using the exact same columns and rows, which is what I recommend you do. Use the exact rows, columns, and ranges that I'm using. If you change your mind, you can delete the rows or the columns you don't need, and the formula would automatically adapt itself to your changes. So once I hit enter, this formula should work. I'm gonna reject this for now. This formula should work once I add information there. So let's say I add 2 here and it says in stock. That makes sense. And if I add 3 here, it's going to say low stock, right? Because my amount I have is lower than my desired amount. So I'm going to change this to quantity on hand as well. All right, so the formula works. Now we can copy the formula and paste it all the way down. So just selecting the entire range, paste formula only. If I double click, you can see that it's selecting the correct cells. I'm going to remove our grid line, all right, because we're done with the table. And now let's copy our placeholder data. So I'm using the placeholder data from our example spreadsheet, but you can go ahead and use whatever placeholder data you want. So you can use realistic data if you already have it, or you can follow along and use random placeholder data just to make sure that the formulas work and your template works the way it's supposed to. All right, as you can see, these automatically show up once values are entered into this column and this column. Next, what I'm going to do is apply the conditional formatting that automatically changes the color based on the stock status. So you see how this says in stock and it's green, out of stock is red. It's based on conditional formatting. So we're going to do that next. So let me show you the formula. It's really straightforward though, but I'm going to show you what it looks like here. Go to conditional formatting, and here's what it looks like. These are the 3 conditional formatting rules that I have entered. It's going to read what is an M3 and apply the conditional formatting style we assigned. We'll do the same thing here. We're going to do conditional formatting, selecting just a few cells, remove the row number and applies it to the entire range all the way down. Changes the custom formula is paste, and because we're using the same exact location, our M3 is also the first one, so we don't need to make any adjustments. M3 equals out of stock. For out of stock, I will use this red color to change the background to red. And then instead of clicking done, we need to do 2 more. So click on add another rule. The one we did is already saved, but it's going to make a copy of it so we can reuse the information. We're still going to use M3 and the same range. So the only thing we need to change is change this from out of stock. Let's do in stock next. And we want in stock to be green, so change this to the green color. All right. And then for the last one, the same thing, add another rule, change this from in stock to low stock. And here we're going to change this to orange. And done. And then now it automatically assigns a color. Let's do a new one. For this additional item, we have a quantity of 20. If we change the minimum to 21, now it says low stock, which is consistent with the formula and the formatting is correct. If we go back to our table, it looks like we've covered everything. So we can go back to our checklist and keep going. So we've done this, cross this off. We've added data validation rules, which were the drop downs and the dates that we added to the table. Next, we're going to start working on the dashboard, starting with the dashboard structure. Here's the dashboard. Here's what we're going to create. We'll start with the outline and then we'll add formulas and then the graphs. Start with a new sheet. The same thing, guys. I'm just changing the formatting to how I like it. Remove everything after U and after 45. Select the entire range, resize it to 30, and A and U, resize this to 30 as well. All right. And then let's call this our dashboard 2. Okay, so let's go back to the example. We've already done this, the border around here. We need a column to separate each section. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, column 1, 2, 3, a column for the entire dashboard. So we have 1 here. So 1, 2, 3. Select this 1, 2, 3. Select this 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Right click, resize, make this 30. And then now we're going to select all of them at once so we can resize them together, and we'll make them 125. Enter. So next we're going to create this section right here. These rectangles here, there are 4 rows starting from 2 all the way down to 5 and 3 columns, and they're all the same. Back here, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 3 columns. We'll add our border around it. So you see how row 2, the first one, is narrower. All right, so let's change that. Change it to 15. It makes the space between the text and the top of the rectangle smaller, because if I were to change this to 30, it looks like we have a lot of dead space. So that's all that is. It's more of a style thing. And to be honest, you could even exclude this. So delete this row and then do it like so. This is what it looks like when you use only 3 rows. I just like the look with 4 rows. You don't have to do it like that. So I have 4 rows with the first one just a little bit smaller. And I'm going to add the color here. Add whatever color you want. All right, I'm using the ones from my palette. Here is going to be where the text is going to go. So we're going to merge that. And if there's going to be a formula in this section, there's going to be a big bold number. So we'll merge that as well. We'll change the font size here because that's where the number is going to go. Change it to 24 and make it bold. All right. And then now that this is done, we can use our paint format and just paint it here and select both of them. All right, so now we have all of them done, and now we can add the text. So I'm just going to copy this text and then I'll explain what they are when we are in our template tab. I'm just copying and paste values only and select them and make them smaller. So we have total out of stock, total in stock, and low stock. So all these 3 related to the quantity on hand. Then we have total expired. This is related to the expiration date because we have a column for that, and total number of ingredients, and that just calculates the number of ingredients we have listed in our database. So pretty straightforward. We'll add the formulas later. Let's keep going with the structure. Next, we'll create this rectangles from 7 to 16. It's going to have a header area and like a subheader area. So we're going to select 7 to 16, add a border around it, and then add the headers and the subheader. So right here, 7 to 16, add our border. And then here's going to be a header, so we'll merge it and add a border around it. And here's going to be a subheader. So there's a border here for sure, but then this is what's merged. So we can add the border around this section and then merge it. And if we go back here, you're going to see why. Because this is the header describing what this is, and this is a drop down for categories. So if we go back here, we can add our colors. So add whatever colors you want. Then we'll add our drop down here. Go to data validation, add rule, drop down from range. Okay, select data range, go back to your setup tab, select your category, go to advanced options, and from chip, change it to arrow. Click done. And then now I can select a category. And this will come in play when we start adding the formulas. So here is going to be a graph, so we can merge this. All right, and then we're going to add the table underneath the graph. So going back here, we have a table with 3 columns. So we need to add the header for the table and the formatting for the table. So back here, this is going to be the header for the table. So border around it and add the colors that you're using for your headers. Here's where the table is going to go, down to 44. Add a border. I'm going to add internal borders, but just the horizontal borders, and change the color, change the style. All right, so here's what it looks like. And I think what I did here was I added a color here. So I'm just going to select that, add a border to isolate that column, and then add a gray color this time. All right, so this is done. Next, we're going to do these ones. We have a long rectangle that's going to fit this vertical graph, both of them, and then we have a square. So the rectangle starts from 7 and goes all the way down to 31, and it fits within this section. So let's do that. Select 7 to 31, outer border, and then the border for the square. All right, and then let's just start merging the headers and add the border around the header area. Do the same for this. Add the border around it. And then we can merge this internal area as well. Then add colors. So add whatever color you want to your header area. This section is identical, so we can select this, use our paint formats, paste it here. And if we go back, we can see that that's all we need to do. We can move on to the next section, which is where we're going to add a table to track expiration date. It's going to be similar to this, where we have a header and we have to select a drop down. Back to our templates. So here's going to be the header, merge that, add our border, and we'll do another border around the second one and then merge these two, right? This is where the drop down is going to go. So select that cell, data validation, add rule. It's going to be drop down this time because we're going to manually type in the drop downs. Back to our example, the drop downs are expired this month, next month, and next 6 months. Okay, so back here, we'll type the exact same words that we have: expired this month, next month, and next 6 months. The formulas need to read these words exactly the way they're spelled here for them to work. Go to advanced and change this to arrow. Click done. All right, so we have expired this month, next 6 months. And then now we can fill out the rest of the table. All right, just add the colors that you want. All right, and then add the border for the table. Select this portion of the table. Back here, change it to the lighter gray, dotted, and horizontal border. So we have our internal borders here. This section is done. So the last section, this square, starts from 7, goes all the way to 18, and then we have another table that goes all the way down to the end of the dashboard. So let's do that. 7 to 18. Let's put our border around it, right? And this is going to be the header, so merge that and add its border. And then we need to create this drop down here. I'm going to make a change because I want everything to be consistent. I made a quick change just to make it consistent because I wanted to say select, so the user knows to select from here. I was missing that part in the previous format. And then we're going to do the same for our templates. So here, merge these two, and then add a border around them and around this one. The drop down is going to be for ingredients, so data validation, add rule, and it's going to be drop down from range. The range is going to be our database food item. Click OK, done. Back here, I want to change the style, so change it to the arrow. Click done. Then go ahead and add the colors you want. You can see that the list of ingredients show up here. The last is the table. We have another drop down here, and this is going to be subcategory drop down and then a regular table. So let's do that. This is the header, so merge that. Here is going to be where select's going to go, and this is going to be merged. So merge this, and we're just going to add borders around both of them. The labels for the table will go here, and then here's the area for the actual table. So add a border and do internal borders, changing the color to the lighter one, dotted line, horizontal borders. All right, and then go ahead and add the colors you want. And then here we're going to add a drop down right here. So click there, add rule, drop down from range, select the range. We're going to select our category, so this one right here in our setup tab. Click OK. Make sure it's the arrow because that's the style I want to use. Clicked on, and let's check it out. All right, so it works. Okay, so the outline of the table is done. Now we can remove the grid line. So here's what it looks like, right? And then we can add some more colors, add some colors here and here. All right, and let's go back to our checklist just to make sure we're on track. We're done with the dashboard structure. Cross this off. Next, we're going to do our dashboard formula. So let's go to our example dashboard. We're going to start with these formulas here. The first formula here is going to calculate the number out of stock for the entire database. You can see that it's referencing the ingredient database, column M, and column M in our ingredient database has the stock status. It's going to count how many out of stock items we have. So if you're not using the word out of stock and you're using a different word, here is where you're going to change it. All right, so we're going to copy this formula and go back to our template. We're going to paste it here. The only thing we're going to do before we hit enter is we need to reference our database is ingredient database 2. This is referencing this database. So change the name by adding 2, ingredient database 2, and everything else should be the same because we're using the exact same rows and columns and ranges. So now I can hit enter, and now it says out of stock is 2. We can double check that. Back to our database, out of stock is 2. I can add one more out of stock, so let's change this from 1 to 0. So now we have 3. When we go back here, now it says 3. And then I'm going to change the font color here to red because this is the out of stock area. Next, we're going to do the in stock. It's the same formula. I'm going to copy this one because this has the correct tab name. I'm going to paste it here, then change out of stock to in stock. So just delete out of and change it to in stock. The spelling has to be correct for it to work, so just make sure that you're using the exact same spelling. So in stock 18. I'll change the color to green. Low stock, the same formula, change out of to low, and that's 4, and change the color here to orange. Okay, so we have this part done. I'm going to skip this formula. We'll come back to it when we've done this section. And then the last one is a count of ingredients. So it's a very straightforward formula. It's counting the unique names of ingredients in our database. So just copy that, go to our dashboard and paste it here. Just change it to dashboard name, the correct one, dash ingredient database 2. 25. So we can double check all of them now. We need to double check that in stock is 18, low stock is 4, and we have 25 ingredients. Just selecting everything in cell B. It says 25 down here, so that's correct. We need to see how many in stock we have. One thing I forgot to add was the filter. So I'm going to do that now. Select the entire header. And if you want, you can select the entire table. And to be honest, I prefer to do that because sometimes the filters don't work if they're not applied to the entire table. So I always just default to applying it to the entire table. Now go up until you see create a filter and select that, and it automatically adds these filters to each column. Now we can use that to filter in stock because we want to know if what we have on our dashboard is correct. So we can clear all and only select in stock. So now we only have in stock. We can count it manually, or you can select everything and look down here. It says 18, which is what we have. Do the same thing. Clear low stock. Okay, we have 4 right here. This is 4. So our numbers are correct. Our formulas are working the way we want them to. Next, we're going to do this section right here. Let's go to our example. Let's see what we have there. So this is a stock status. So we can copy that and just the header, right? Stock status. So back here, we have our drop down for our category, right? So what this formula is going to do is a filter formula. It's going to filter our database. It's going to filter the food item from column B, the quantity on hand from column G, right? And the stock status from column M. And it's going to filter it based on the category that has been selected here, C8. So it's going to display that information based on categories. If you want to see all your baking ingredients, stock status, you select that category, it displays that. If you want to see your beverages, it shows you just your beverages, things like that. So that's what the formula is doing. Go back to our dashboard, and before I type in the formula, I want to show you something else. So right here, we can type food item, quantity on hand, or stock status right here, or you can reference them directly from the table. And I like to use referencing from the table because if I do decide to change the name in the database table, it automatically changes it in the dashboard. So what do I mean? So you see how food item says B2, right? That's B2 right here. So that's what I'm going to do for our own dashboard template. So here, I know I want food item to go here. So type equals, go to our ingredient database. I want it to say food item. And here I want it to say quantity, so equals. Let's scroll to quantity on hand. And then finally, I want it to say stock status. That's an M right here. Okay, and then we can make this bold. And then now I'm going to paste the formula here. All right, so here's the formula. You can pause the video to copy it. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about my Patreon. I have a Patreon membership that if you are a part of, you will have full access to the templates that I create in these tutorials. So if you're a paid member, every time I post this video, there will be a link in the video description box. You can go ahead and download the templates. So thank you, current Patreon subscribers. If you're interested in being a part of my Patreon and supporting me in that way, I'll leave a link in the description box so you can go ahead and sign up. All right, so this is the formula. The only thing we're going to change is the name because we're not using this database, we're using this one, database 2. So change that to ingredient database 2. For everywhere we have ingredient database, type ingredient database 2. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3. We changed it 4 times, okay? And C8 is the same, right? C8 is the category drop down. So everything is okay. So now we're going to hit enter. For beverage, we have coffee beans. We have 10 on hand, and orange juice, we have 0 on hand. Let's double check that. So coffee beans, we have 10 on hand, and orange juice, we have 0. So that's correct. This is going to say select. Now, we also wanted to display here in colors using conditional formatting automatically the way it displays here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply the same conditional formatting formula. So I'm just copying it from here, but we're going to change it when we get to the dashboard tab. So we need to apply it to this section here. So select the entire section, okay, conditional formatting, and change it to custom formula. Type the formula here, but we're going to change the formula because M3 was the starting cell in the database table. For our starting cell here, it is D18. So change M3 to D18, out of stock. And change the color. So we're going to apply this red color for out of stock. Add another rule, in stock, change it to green. Add another rule, low stock, change that to orange, and click done. So now it applies the conditional formatting correctly. Let's change it to beverage because we know we had the out of stock for orange juice and it works perfectly. There's a chart here, but we'll skip that and come back when we're adding all of the charts and graphs. We'll skip these as well. Let's move over here. Back to our example. This is going to be upcoming expirations. So I'm going to paste that here first. Add select here. So here's the formula. What the formula is doing is going to filter food item, the brand name, and the expiration date into these 3 columns. It's going to base it on what we have selected in this drop down, right? So if it says this month, it's going to look through the dates in column F and filter the ones that are within the current month and display that. If you change it to expired, it's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to look through F3F, compare it to today's date, and filter the dates that are before today's date. It's going to do it for this month, next 6 months, and expired. So those are the 4 drop down options we have. So let's copy that. All right, and go to our example, and we're going to paste it here. But before I do that, I want to add the labels. It's going to be the same thing we did for the previous table. Here is going to be the food item. So I'm going to do equals. I'm going to grab it directly from the table, food item. The next one is going to be brand. So do the same, equals. Select the brand, and then here's going to be the expiration date, so do that, equals. Scroll to column F with the expiration dates, hit enter, and I'm just going to select these and make them bold, and now I'm going to paste the formula here. Okay, so now I'm going to change this to ingredient database 2, so we're selecting the correct database. We have to do this a few times though, so just make sure you don't miss anyone. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. All right, I have this error message. Let's select an option here, so expired. Okay, I'm just going to make this smaller. So I'm going to reformat this table to right here for text wrapping. I'm going to do the clip. All right. And then the food item, I'm going to make this left justified. And for the dates, select that column, go to formats, choose the date option that we used previously. All right. So here's what it looks like. So now if we change it to this month, the current month is May. So it automatically pulls all the ones that will expire this month, next 6 months. So it pulls all the ones that would expire in the next 6 months. So the next thing we want to do is add conditional formatting so that when it's expired, it shows red. So if you look at our example, you can see all this red color because all these dates are before today's dates. These items are expired. So I'm going to show you the conditional formatting formula right here. Here is the formula. We're going to copy that. And it's looking at the dates from P10, the first cell with a date, P10, and it's comparing it to today's dates. We're going to apply to this entire section. Conditional formatting, change it to custom formula is, all right, P10. So because we're using the exact same range, we don't have to change anything. But if you're not using the exact same range, make sure that the first cell for the dates is what's in the formula. So here is P10, all right, and the formula says P10. And now we can apply the color we want. So let's use this lighter color and click done. All right, and now if we change it to expired, you can see all of these show up as expired. I'm going to change the conditional formatting text to white and maybe use this darker color. Okay, I like this better. So now you can see the expired ones. Next month, it shouldn't show up. Next 6 months, nothing should show up. But this month, some of them should show up. All right, so the next formula here, when we select an ingredient, so let's say coffee beans, it displays the information specific to that ingredient. So if you look here, right here is referencing the column label. These are column labels. First, we'll select the column labels that we want, and then we'll display the information underneath the column label for that ingredient. So go back here, we're going to add in horizontal borders. And then these are going to be merged horizontally. So select these two columns all the way down and merge horizontally. All right, so we have two sections, this section and this section. Here's how we're going to enter the label. So equals. The first thing we're going to reference is the brand name. So just the top one right here, C2. And the next one is going to be C3 category, right? And then you could just copy this and change D to E. All right, so we have these three done. Brand, category, subcategory. We're not referencing every single column. It really depends on what you want displayed when you select your ingredients here. So the next one here is I2. So do I2, packaging, J2 for location, expiration dates, F2, so G2, K2, and then you select this entire range, merge it, and I'm going to change the color back to white and just add back our border. Make this left justified. Bold it and put it in italics. Now we're going to filter out the values here based on obviously what is in this column. Before we do that, add the header information and select right here. We can select an ingredient name. Now we need to add the formulas that would pull in the information for the brand for whatever we've selected here. Go back here. Here's a formula. So it's going to filter C2. C2 is where the brand name is when the information in S8, so right here in the drop down, matches the name in B2. B2 is where we have all of our ingredients listed. So just copy this and go here. Let's paste it here. We're going to change it to database 2, hit enter. And now we have a brand name. We can also change the alignment to left here. So now that we've done this, it's pretty easy to do the rest of them because all we need to do now is copy this, paste it here. All right. And then we're going to change the location. So remember, C2 is where the brand name was. Now for category is in D. So now we can change it from C2 to D2. Now it's going to filter the category. The subcategory is in E. All right, so change it to E right here. This is going to be column I. So change it from C to column I. This is column J. Here, J. And expiration date is in F. So change this to F. The quantity on hand, I'm going to skip it because it is a modified version of the formula and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's do the supplier K2, change this to K. And then this space here I'm using for notes. The notes is in column O. So just paste the same formula and just change this to O to O. So let's go back. As you can see, for the quantity on hand, merges the information for the quantity, the packaging, and the packaging material. If we go back to our ingredient database, what it's doing is going to merge these three columns, G, H, and I. So it's going to say we have one 1 kilogram bag. That's what this is here. 1 50-gram pack of yeast. It's merging three columns in one and is separating them by this pipe symbol. I think that's what it's called, this horizontal line. Here's a formula. We're going to copy that. And I'm just changing it to database 2 to match our current database. For our templates, everything else is the same, so hit enter. So now for eggs, quantity on hand is 61 dozen cartons. For the last table, when you select the category here, so let's say baking ingredients, it gives you a list of the baking ingredient, quantity on hand, and the unit of measure. It's just an additional space if you wanted to see what you had without regard to expiration date or stock status. What are the list of baking ingredients I have in my database? And it displays it right here. It's a filter formula filtering this column, and this column when the S20 right here matches the category in column D. That's all. So we'll copy that. And this is food item, quantity on hand, and unit of measure. So let's do that first. Food item. So we're referencing the column names. Food item, quantity in hand. Okay. And what was the third one? The unit of measure right here. If you wanted to show something else, you don't want unit of measure, change it from column H to the column that you want displayed. Okay, so right now we hit enter and nothing's showing because we haven't selected anything. So let's select baking ingredients and the list of baking ingredients show up here. Just make this bold and type select here. Okay, and let's see how the table looks. We're almost done. All right, we'll have to come back to this one because this is the total number expired. If we go here, the total number expired is going to look at the original database and look at the dates in column F and count the number that's number of dates less than today. So let's copy that and we're going to paste it here and change it to database 2. Everything else should be the same and hit enter. So we have 11 and we can double check this by going here and selecting expired. We should have 11 items here, which is correct, which matches what we have here. And then I'm going to change this to red just to show that it is expired. And those are all the formulas. Let's go back to our checklist. We can cross this off. I already talked about my Patreon, so I'm going to cross this off. The last thing we're going to do is add our graphs. So going back to the example dashboard, we'll start with this graph here. This is a graph for the stock status. So just this column here. Go back here. We're going to select this column. All right, doesn't matter if you select the header. Go to insert charts, change it to pie, click on aggregate. If you selected the header, you're going to need to select use row 17 as header. So select that, and then it's going to remove the stock status as one of the options here. And now go to customize and remove the background color and the border color. And I do this because I already have a border color and a background color in that section. So I don't need to use the one that comes with the graph, and just resize it until it fits well in that space. And then you could change the legend. So you see how this legend is automatically selected, the label legend. You can change it to left, which is what I prefer to use. Just makes it look a little bit cleaner and just make sure it fits perfectly. So for this graph, this is going to be the category, and it's for all of the categories entered into the database, and this is a subcategory. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to reference the actual category name in the database table. So do equals category. Do the same for this, equals subcategory. And then we're going to need to enter the graph for the categories. So to do this, click on insert charts. We're going to select this one, this bar chart right here. For the data range, click the select data range. Go to our database, select our category. I'm going to select just a few and remove the row number so it selects everything. Hit OK. Make sure you check aggregates. I'm going to use row 2 as header. So you can omit selecting the header, and then you don't have to check this box. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other chart, which is remove the color and the border and fit it right here. Just squeeze it in this space to make it longer. If you click on this, you can remove the grid line. It gives it a cleaner look. Since it's going to be a similar chart, we can just copy this chart, paste it here, and change the range. So go to Setup tab. Now, instead of D, we're going to change it to E, because that's what the subcategory is. So change it from E2 to E252 and hit enter. And then now we change it to the subcategory that you can click here and change the color. So let's say for the subcategory, you want it to be displayed this color, and for the category, you want it to be this color. So just change the colors to whatever you want. One more thing, you can adjust the graph to make sure that the text fits better. So if you select this, you can see that there is this rectangle here around the bars. You can just drag it to the right and the text fits better. You could do the same here. Drag it here. So it looks like this. Then we're going to do the last two, and these are brand and location. You can do whatever pie chart you want here. Whatever is meaningful for you to be summarized in your dashboard is what you should include. So for this example, I am including brand, but you can easily substitute it for something else. So now I'm going to insert the chart for the column brand. So now click on data range, go to our database, select brand, remove the row number, click OK, change it to aggregate, and then do the same thing I did before. Remove the color, remove the border, and just squeeze it in here. Change the legend to left, and this is what it looks like. And then I can just copy this, paste it here, move it into this space. And the last one is storage location. Reference the actual name of the column right here. And so this is going to be column J. So now I can edit the range directly here. So change this from C to J. Change it here one more time. All right. And then it automatically updates the chart to the information in column J, and everything else is the same, and the graphs are done. You can readjust it if necessary. So double click when this rectangle shows up, adjust it so that the names fit better. And now let's just take a quick look to make sure everything looks good and we're not missing any graphs, any charts, any formulas. It looks like we have covered everything. Let's just go back to our checklist to be sure. And yes, that is the last piece of item on our checklist. I know this is a really long video, so if you're watching all the way till the end, thank you so much. And if you were able to create this template, let me know in the comment section. Remember, I don't have a bakery. I don't run a cafe or a restaurant. So I'm using information that I think would be best for this situation. But if you are in this situation where you are working in a bakery or you have your own business and you created this and there's something that you would do different that would make this template better, let me know. Leave it in the comment section, and what I can do is create updates to the formulas or to the actual tutorial to accommodate what you recommend. If you run into some struggles, let me know in the comment section as well. And then finally, I want to know what else you want me to create. So this is part of a series, and this series is going to go on for a long time because There are many different types of dashboards for many different scenarios that we can create. So all I need is an idea for a database, or if you have a database, we can use that database to create a dashboard. That would be amazing. So leave that in the comment section below. You can also contact me directly. My contact information is in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.